Oh, is there the clicker? Is that one of these things?
Yeah, we didn't pick. Got it?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for what I hope will be a really fun session. If you would have asked me a few years ago, are you going to find a session fun and entertaining on data privacy? I probably would have said no. So it's quite fun.
Make it fun.
But yeah, it's actually become my new favorite topic, so I'm glad we're here today. So there's a guy. He's not here. So
That's James.
That's James. He's
Space.
back in New York, not here. He was a casualty of the flight cancellations yesterday. So you give me and Deb. But we're very fun, and we're excited to talk to you all about privacy. All right. Why does privacy matter? It's a very big, vague, open-ended question. And maybe during the Q&A, somebody will share why you think privacy matters. When we think about it, or some of the things that come to mind for me, is that there's a lot of data and information out there. And we should have some control over what is shared and what people know about us. The other thing that's kind of interesting is this isn't a new topic to many of us or the world of advertising. It's something that's we've been grappling with over the years. But what's different about it now is the internet and this information age that we're in. Now marketers have a ridiculous amount of data on our behavior that has never really been available before. And I think what's fun about this session and this topic in general is that it's changing every day. So Google recently said, guess what? You get cookies for another year. We're not getting rid of them until 2024. And who knows, it could be 2025, because they need more time. But we know that the world is changing. And I kind of made me think back to this book that I'm a fan of, Great by Choice. And the whole theme of the book is, how do some companies thrive in chaotic times and others fail? And I felt like it's very topical for where we are now. So it's something that throughout this session, you'll get to hear more about from both of us.
Right.
So again, there's some legislation that needs to happen. There's some regulation that needs to happen. Countries and states are hopping in and getting on the bandwagon and putting the rules out there for folks, and brings us to GDPR and CCPA. And as tech companies have started to see that regulations are coming, they're saying, well, that's awesome, but we kind of want to control our own destinies. So we are not going to wait for regulations to happen. We want to self-regulate ourselves, which is smart. You want to get ahead of what's coming and be able to control your business. The one thing that's kind of funny, like when the whole Google thing came about, 2020, and they said, no more cookies, we're getting rid of them, we all kind of freaked out. Who freaked out? Oh, don't be shy, come on. We all use cookies, it's everywhere. We all kind of had a moment of, uh-oh, what are we gonna do? But this isn't new. Safari got rid of them a while ago. Firefox got rid of them a while ago. The Google impact is just because Google has the largest market share of search providers. So that's why it really shook us up. But the good news is we've been experiencing this with other companies. Apple with iOS 14 took away or allowed users to say, you can track my app activity. And what this did is impacted our ability of marketers to see whether or not our ads are actually working and doing what we want them to do. Then Apple also decided this back in September, just recently, to say, hey, guess what? We're going to give people the ability to decide if you wanted us to track your email activity, which again is something that we've all worked through and dealt with and come through the other end okay. So as we're moving forward, I guess first little thought is we will survive, to quote Gloria Gaynor, and that we can also be now being proactive and working on strategies to circumvent and to kind of take back control of what's happening to us. So we're not just have to be at Google's mercy to say, oh goody, you can use cookies a little bit longer, and oh goody, you can't. So we've got some time and we've got ability in our hands to do to kind of take back control.
When all through this, when we were preparing for this conversation, we kept saying, A, we have some ownership and control. We should be proactive. This history and timeline gives us a little sense of, it's going to continue to happen, right? So let's not wait. Let's actually take ownership of what we have within our own ecosystem. So as we dive in, we'll go a little deeper into how do you take ownership today and for your organization or for your campaigns.
Exactly. I think that was the biggest, like, whenever change comes, we all get, you go through the fear factor first.
That's right.
Like, oh gosh, what the heck am I gonna do? And then you start to rationalize and figure out, okay, we're gonna move forward, we're gonna come up with strategies. So this next slide, we're really kind of thinking about when cookies are no longer here, what effects will these have? But if you think about what effects these have in Facebook, you're already experiencing this. So scale is a big thing. Instead of being able to cast a many-to-one wide audience and wide prospecting group, you're now minimized to much smaller targeting options or smaller groups and smaller audiences. And then when you think about third-party audiences, when you think about measurement and attribution and website retargeting, they're all kind of together, and they all really talk about behavior on the internet, what your behaviors are, how you're interacting, what you're following, what people are looking at, and what you're doing. So we're really saying that what will be reduced is your ability, you have more control, which I think is really nice from a user's perspective, and from a marketer's perspective, we just have to start coming up with different ways to be measuring and looking for third-party audiences, or looking at our prospecting groups and figuring out what we're gonna do. So the one great thing, again, about the Google change is that we're already experiencing this now within Facebook and with other channels. So we have the opportunity to learn from those platforms and make some changes today. So what are we gonna do? How are we gonna target folks? And also, again, just because we've got a little bit more time, it doesn't mean we should just press pause on all of our strategies. We need to continue the conversation and really work on being cookie resilient. So what does that entail? For us, it really focuses on really shoring up your first-party data. So this is on ownership on all of us, is to kind of get our house in order. When we talk about identity resolution, we're usually talking about it in the digital world of trying to align somebody who's been in this platform or that platform and bring them together. In this instance, we're saying, let's take a look at what's in your platform. So what do you have in your CRM system? What are you using internally to do that identity resolution? Because you know you're going to find people in different channels. So what's going to be that linkage for you? The other thing is to really look at your lead forms and opt-ins and give people more opportunities to join you so that you have their explicit opt-ins, you're good to go. And then the other two components are, again, enriching what you have today. So what do you have in your data now that you can expand upon and do more of and reach more people with, as well as looking at some modeling opportunities, which really isn't new to us. We've been doing modeling forever. It's just been more targeted at direct mail. So that last list kind of brings us to what is this cookieless environment going to be? In a lot of respects, we're going backwards in time a little bit. You sometimes think you can't go backwards and you wish you could. Now we get to go backwards. So things on the two sides of the screen there, contextual targeting, we used to do this all the time. This is how we used to do prospecting and advertising before we had behavioral targeting. We'd say, I sell sports equipment. I need an audience of people who like sports, and we link them together. Same with traditional marketing channels, direct mail, email. These are all things that we have control over. And then the social platforms are giving us these opportunities now within these walled gardens, which is essentially what Google is creating with the deprecation of cookies. So we can experiment now using different targeting options, using custom audiences, and seeing what we can learn so that we can branch those out into other audiences or other platforms. And then lastly, cohort-based solutions. This is something you'll be hearing a lot about. This is really Google's answer to no more cookies. They're looking at ways to create anonymous pools of people so that you're not able to tie one person back to one attribute. It's also kind of similar if you think about data modeling that we've all been doing for years. You have a ton of attributes that give you your target audience. That's exactly what Google's doing, and there's just debates around whether or not it's that anonymous. So I think that's probably why they needed more time, which is why we have more time to figure out our strategies.
What we loved about this, to tie for those of us that are in the nonprofit world, we've been doing this for a really long time. We talk about how we handle our donor pools, how we talk about the constituents we serve, just like the conversation we just heard. We do this already. It's actually just marrying these two theories together. And oftentimes these functions live in two different parts of our houses. We actually need to bring them together so we solve in one uniformed way. There was this time when being separate was more effective or more efficient. What we're now finding is we need to actually collaborate, because those walled gardens exist even within our own organizations.
Exactly. And I really wish we would have renamed this slide a little bit. People are willing to trade information for value, because this is something we've been doing since the beginning of time. I would give Baskin-Robbins my birthday every year so I could get my free sundae. Now I look forward to Sephora giving me my birthday gift. So if there's value in it, we're willing to give you information, because believe it or not, we actually like personalized advertising. We don't like the general stuff. We did a study and it showcased 80% of people are more likely to buy something or make a donation due to the personalization of the ad and the experience towards them. So we'll touch a little bit more on that later, but people will give you information as long as we deliver on the value to them. And that's our responsibility as marketers, to really live up to the promise that we're putting out there for our constituents and our prospects.
It's back to, and we're going to convert into our organization a little more, but it's back to that donor, right? When we talk about donor-centric communication, we all know it's proven over and over again. You put my name on it. You also reference what I have passion for in your mission. I will likely give again. I will stay loyal to you. I will continue to come back, and I'll tell you more. I'll continue to engage with you. So it's no different for us. Again, it's habits we've already been forming, but often living in different parts of the organization. So we wanted to give you our story. Big Brothers Big Sisters of America is all about this one-to-one relationship, which is what everyone's trying to get to now. This new environment means we now need to have a relationship brand to you, consumer. We already live that. We are the #1 mentoring organization in the nation, rooted in JEDI, founded out of the juvenile justice system to create equity for young people by connecting them with diverse individuals, providing them with an inclusive space so that they can rise to be all that they could potentially become, because they were empowered and given that opportunity to be the resilient young people they are. And through that JEDI vision, we've been doing this for 104 years. So we're very tied into this one-to-one approach. And because of that, we do it through multiple audiences. We talk about this from 3 lenses. One is the young person we serve. And with that, we have a really important added area of security. So I'll talk about that in a moment. The other is their mentor, that big. So bigs and littles. We believe that the big is a critical audience, and they're a different age, right? So when we talk about multi-generation, we come into that. The person that's not showing here in that youth and big environment is their parent. These young folks are not opting in. Their parent is opting in for them. So I have this whole other audience in here in this one-to-one, and it's really now one-to-many, right? And then on top of that, I have the donor, the person who's fueling that mission on the other side and really engaged and wants to be able to follow this story and be really thrilled about this partnership. So from the very beginning, we've always taken a first-party approach, and for a few reasons. Think about those audiences. Think about who I'm talking to on a daily basis across the entire network. There are 230 agencies in our federation. So one of the critical parts for us in taking this first-party data approach is prioritizing that one-to-one communication. Parent and us, right? One-to-one. What's going on with your kid? And protecting that young person's identity and information. From the very beginning, everything within our model is rooted in a very high child safety, child protection underlay. So from very early on, and I'll again go back to this privacy importance, that one-to-one's been critical. Sometimes we are talking to the young person. Sometimes we're talking to a parent. Are we using a different voice? 100%. Sometimes we're talking to the mentor, and we're talking to them as the mentor of that young person, and other times we're talking to them as a volunteer for the movement, which is also a different conversation. So voice and tone are different each time, and then that donor is always different. What if I'm a donor and a big? What if I'm a donor and a parent? What if I'm a donor and one of your corporate partners? Each of those is really important. So we look at them in that one-to-one experience all along. We happen to benefit from being a universal CRM for those constituents across the network. So when a big and a little are signed up in this town, they are recorded in a universal CRM, even though we're federated, so that we can have that very important privacy. So going all the way back to the beginning, we were talking about the laws are going to catch up to us. Ensuring that our data is privacy compliant, it's not an option. So I came before Big Brothers Big Sisters from many HIPAA organizations, and I'm sure there are many of you out there as well. We had to comply, right? Data privacy, HIPAA compliance, super important. Well, now we have young people, and their privacy is really critical. Ensuring their protection, really critical. We background checked every big. That's really important private data and information. It's not available widely, even within the organization. So again, these habits and activities are happening likely within your own organization, but we probably haven't brought them together because background check lives over here in program, right? Donor segmentation lives over here with the development team. And marketing and outreach lives over here in the comms group. And never do these three folks always meet and talk about what does this mean when we want to have a one-to-one engagement with our full constituency. That's the merger of this conversation, but it's the part where we feel like we've had a little advanced experience. And what we've learned through this is that we find that one-to-one's really important, so we can create that personal journey for someone. And there are things that are still working that we can all feel good about. Mail's lovely. How many of you started writing notes during the pandemic? Anybody start writing notes to people? I'm a note writer like nuts, so if you've ever worked with me before, you know I like mass write notes. It's highly therapeutic for your mental health to write a note to someone because it puts positive on paper out of you, and then it arrives to them, and it's a secondary win, right? Guess who really loves mail? People millennial and under, because their bills are in their email or online, or I've opted out to any, and I don't want to see anything. I have to go log in. So when I get mail, it's super exciting. When our young folks, our young people get mail, super exciting.
I will say when people in their 40s get mail, super exciting.
Odd-shaped.
Odd-shaped. Got a thank you card from a wine club I recently joined. Definitely kept me into the wine club. And I have a few memberships, but I loved the personal note. I took a picture of it and sent it to my friends who were there. I'm like, this is service. This is really nice, making me feel valued and important. So.
That's right. Love mail.
Love mail.
And you're finding this happen more and more, the breakout of mail, right? So again, odd-shaped, lots of color, super fun. We all know it still works, so don't forget it. It seems like for a long time we said, direct mail's dead, stop spending money on postage, the mail house is slow, we had all those excuses. No, it works. If you want to stand out and be put on someone's refrigerator, which still happens, that's mail. It's a joy. Or I then get to be the moment that you just described. I take a picture and then I share it with my network, right? So now I've spanned in the right way. The other is start with what you have. So did you listen in the last session? Think about who your partners are. Think about who your other assets are. Who are your allies? Who's at your table? We're a small organization at Big Brothers Big Sisters of America. You probably think we're giant because we are 100 plus years old. We've been around a long time. We have 230 agencies around the country. At the national level, we're really small. We're about $30 million as an organization on our 990. Our fellow youth-serving organizations are about 3 times as big as us at the national level, if not 4 or 5. We're little. So we have to start with what we have. And we don't have everything. We're just a tiny team. I am a small development team of less than that row of people right there. Very, very small humans. And that means we need to rely on friends. So when we talk about relying on friends, we think about both our network. What we have is 230 agencies. We have these people that can help spread our voice in a grassroots way, fundamentally in their communities meaningfully, right? They have one-to-ones as well. We also have partners. So we have authentic partners like you just heard talking about as the examples, who we take advantage of their brand assets and identities because like you just heard, everyone wants to be in an authentic Jedi relationship that lifts their DEI values, and we happen to be a good cause. So our friends at Express recently opened up their CTV and did a great campaign with us in the fall. I don't have budget for that. They do. What they then did, were smart enough, was engage a spokesperson from our organization, so it created great authenticity, who actually loves their brand. It was very appropriate, very aligned, very youth-facing, very experiential, got to the place of youth confidence and inclusion, and spoke to key alignments for us, why this mattered, right? Creating confidence in young people. We took advantage of their assets. We have these friends at the NFL who, somebody else was talking about their Super Bowl ad. We were in the Super Bowl PSA. Our mission, our brand. We did not pay for that. We were a grantee that took advantage of that audience in that moment. What these moments do for us is curate that new person that comes to our table through those channels, so we see the alignment between partner, and now we can tie them into our one-to-one experience, because the minute they come to us, the first thing we ask is first-party data so that we can acquire them, and so they can go to the right local friend. We always want to go back to being strongly federated in a positive way. You go to your own community. Come right in and let's set you down right here. Or if you really want to be a national partner, you can stay here. Most people really care still about their backyard, so you get the both and in this experience. So when you land on our page, that's where we're taking you, always. The number one call to action is become a big, and right away we ask you for your first party data. The last part was, what have we learned? So people ask this all the time, and we'll talk more about what we're learning, because in that aspect of the last conversation you all heard, we should always be learning. We've learned what's worked, and we're learning what's not working. We've learned that absolutely leveraging our partner brands is working for us, and it's curating others to ask for more. Wait, we'd like to do that with you too. How'd that work? Wait, that person's really interested in us and they synergize, and how can we put this together? Wait, we share a partner. So again, NFL Inspire Change, many of you are grantees as well. We were able to bring our friends, like we just mentioned at P&G, Old Spice in, because they care about kids graduating from high school. And so now they're friends with us. Pepsi really cares about stronger communities and equity in the organizations and communities they serve. And so now they're friends with us because they were friends with this other friend, right? Friends of friends. We have learned that's working really well. We have learned that our alumni love us, but we can't find them, just like you all. So we are using social media and group giving in the way that many of you are, in the Facebook groups and creating cohorts. It's bringing them closer, because we know we don't get all that great data from our friends at Facebook, so we get to actually engage with them more one-to-one. We know that there are about 10 million of them out there, and we only know about 2. So we have to keep mining, to keep going. We also know that when we get a transformational gift, like we just received in May as a network, if we do this right, we can take that gift and leverage it for more giving and more engagement. And what has happened in that fueling from our Mackenzie Scott gift was we turned it into a moment to talk about our important mission. So while most people went and talked about, we got our biggest gift ever, we treated it as, this is an invitation because 1 in 3 kids need a mentor. She sees that, and we want you to see that, and please join us. So really thinking about how you tell that story, how you leverage a moment like that in press, in media, and advertising, that's what we did. We flipped it so that it became an invitation for more. Most organizations that have been receiving funds from her have been able to double that dollar over time, and we have seen an increase in giving already, and folks coming in interested to engage because the invitation was put there. We are not done. Whereas many organizations said, biggest gift ever, now we're done. No, biggest gift ever, we're not done, we're just starting. So it was huge, huge for us to keep learning and evolving and learning from others, not just learning from within our own house, how we treat those moments. So we're going to pass over a little more and talk more about being this one-to-one, this human part of our world.
When we were preparing for this session, we spent a lot of time talking about one-to-one and how commercial enterprises are doing it to reach us. Target's a great example of being able to send me ads and emails and things in the mail where they know exactly what I'm looking for before I might know what I'm looking for. They're great about creating these personalized experiences. So how can we look and see what they're doing and then translate it into our nonprofit world? And for us, it really means it starts with data. It starts with what you have, what you can collect, and then what you can add to. So we're going to talk about those three. So this is something that we geeked out on for a while talking about this, because I often think we don't realize the value in the information and the data that we have in our own houses. So data you have, you want to create that personalized experience like Target, well, you know when somebody last gave to you. You know the first time when they gave to you, know how much they gave to you, know what channel they gave to you, and you know what city they're from. You can take that information and create that personalized experience based off of using just what the donor told you by filling out a form or sending in a letter. We did a recent looked at some data and found that surprising, most people who make their first gift in December are 4 times more likely to make their second gift in December. So with that in mind, you can go look at your data. You'll probably see the same thing, but you can come up with a specific strategy for all those December givers. You don't have to treat them like you treat anyone who gave in the 11 months of the year, because they probably came in because they thought, oh, it's tax-deductible giving time. This is what I'm accustomed to doing. So to me, this whole topic of personalization and what we can do, it's kind of ironic, I think it's the proper use of irony, where we're talking about providing these custom one-to-one experiences at the same time as limiting what people can know about us. And I think the place where it all comes together, it comes to the information that someone is giving to you. So we are happy, like I said, I like my ice cream, I love my Sephora birthday gift. There's a lot of information that you can collect. This, to me, is where we have the ability to survey our constituents. We can put questions in emails that gather information and put them in different interest groups. The big part here is delivering on that promise. If I'm going to ask you, do you like cats or dogs? And I tell you I like cats, then I should get emails and communications about cats, because that's my area of interest. One of the things that we were laughing at earlier today is we're not alone in this. So Amazon and commercial vendors are out there doing the same thing. Amazon yesterday asked me, do I love running? It was a survey, yes or no. And I was like, no, but I like walking. But the point of it was I just bought new running shoes and a new running belt. So they are wanting to know, do I like running? So they can serve me more content, probably about running. They also asked me if I like environmentally conscious items. So I was like, yes. So I'm very curious now to see what my Amazon experience is going to be based off of this information that I provided to them based off of the questions they asked. So if you ask and have a plan for it, people will give it to you. And then the last is just like data you can append. What do you want to know? Maybe Facebook took away a ton of targeting options that were really important to us as nonprofits and how we reach people. Political affiliation, causes, organizations, and I get why they did it. There was a lot of data misuse. So they don't want to be in the headlines with that again, so they're proactively saying, we're going to take away some of these sensitive topics. But for us, it means, well, maybe I need to go find that information out somewhere else. So you can work with someone that you trust and value to provide you that information to your donor file, or you can create, so that way you can create those one-to-one experiences. If you know that somebody has a ton of voter engagement, maybe the appeal you should send them is more of a take action-oriented message versus someone who's not that into voting. So there's ways that you can develop and gather this information, whether you already have it, can collect it, or can append it.
That's one of my favorites that we talked about, is this take what we have and utilize it in a meaningful way, right? So he's and he works at ABC company. Probably data we didn't always utilize together, right? To think about, well, what does that mean? And what are ABC company's values? And what does that mean? And do they have coworkers? And what does that mean? We haven't done that. We also haven't done it with a parent. So here's this youth, and their parent also is employed and here, or this big is an alumni of said organization, affinity group, university, et cetera. This helps us spread as nonprofits. It is data we already have. And when you were talking about the survey, when we survey, it's all of us in development know, when you ask for advice, you get money. When we ask you for your input, you feel valued. You feel like we care about you as nonprofits. We care about where we're going. You care about how we're supporting you, and therefore you feel more vested and you give more money. So it's this beautiful thing that we can learn from brand that says, hey, I want to give you a more curated experience. Well, so do we. But when we ask, the feeling you get is different in nonprofit. You feel like we care because we come from the space of care first, not the space of sell first.
Exactly. And when I think back to all of this, just kind of working within different agencies and with different nonprofits, there's always been that sense of when a change comes from the technology world, like you're running around like Henny Penny, the sky is falling. And what we really wanted to be here today is to say that that's not the reality of it. You know, we have a lot of ways that we can control our own destinies and continue to reach new donors, find prospects in different ways, and then create that personalized experience. So we're going to close with our checklist to what can you do to be cookie resilient. Hopefully you've gathered today that you have some control and ownership in this fight. Like, there's a few things you can do in that sense, and one is reaching out to your advertisers. If you have reps with these different companies, you can give them your feedback and what you're looking for as marketers. That's definitely something that we should all be doing, is giving our feedback and advocating on our behalf so that we're able to continue to operate our businesses the way we would like to. Deb, what were some of your features and tactics and solutions that we're running low on time, but
we'll get through it. We really felt like it was important to think about, again, use what we have, and maybe use what we have in a more integrated approach than we have before. So really pull together our audiences that surround us, and not just who you're using for your advertiser, but who are you also using for your direct mail and or your donor stewardship and or your program innovation. Like, we really, as a nonprofit, need to pull on all three levers, because that's all there for us, and we haven't pulled them into one pond or one walled garden of data in order to append, in order to get that full profile of who's around us, and then go find those like modeled of people to go with the next friend and the next friend.
And when I think differently from a digital first person who then picked up direct mail along the way, for me, there's so much we can learn from our direct mail counterparts. In the digital world, we're used to prospecting, again, based off of our online behavior. That's what has become the bread and butter of how we find our prospects and donors. But now, that's not how we're going to find everybody. So we can go look at some of those traditional tactics that we've been using and that work really well in direct mail and bring them over to the digital space. So for us digital folks, some of it is getting back to using different techniques and, you know, going backwards and learning a little bit from what our counterparts are doing. Because while we all are working to kind of bridge that gap between our direct mail and our digital groups, we're still a little bit separate. So this is that opportunity to kind of break down those barriers and bring the teams together, and by you bringing your data together.
The one we wanted to lift here too is, don't forget to rely on other people. Like, we couldn't afford to do CTV alone. And start by starting, right? So I don't have a large donor pool. I have less than 10,000 people. Start with those 10,000. Experiment, opportunize in those areas. Go ahead and do a little test your direct mail, because you will see results. So don't worry that you have to have a mass scale. You don't need millions of constituents to start. Start with what you have, experiment, and utilize others to help you get there. I think our last one is next.
Yeah, we're very good. We did well.
Not bad on our time.
Not bad, James. Lastly, he's really quiet. He's shy. Lastly, just hopefully, again, this has been a constant theme for us. It's been a theme as we've been working through all of this, is just really you empower yourself. Like, you don't have to wait for the tech companies to tell you what you need to do or how you can target people. You have the opportunity to take back control of your programs and figure out what's going to work best for your organization and which platforms you want to be in. Because, like, at the end of the day, this is kind of like a Debbie Downer way of, not really, it's just the other side of it. You have to think about, like, what's in it for some of the tech companies. For them, they're really looking at their bottom line. So Google, people have been, all the different DSPs are getting those dollars out of it, and now Google's saying, we could probably get a little bit more as this walled garden. So there's just the opportunity to not be so reliant and waiting for somebody to tell you what to do, because it really is based off of what's best for their business. So we have to think about what's best for our organizations. And they're just platforms we use. They're not the ones who are dictating our strategies.
That's right. We love the empower yourself part. And to lean all the way back to the last session, right? What's sitting in your values, your mission, your objectives, that should help you spend a little bit of time on what do I do first? Just do something. That's what we're trying to say before we're mandated to.
Don't wait till 2024
Yes.
and be like, whoopsie daisies, what should I have done? You know,
Right.
use the time now. And we're at 0-0, so I guess it's Q&A.
That's our next slide. Look at that.
We're so on point.
Thank you, Amy and Deborah, for that great information. We have quite a few questions to get to. The first one is not actually a question, but an appreciation for all things mail, especially a handwritten postcard.
Okay, no, you're, okay.
So our first actual question is, I know you are telling us to have a voice, but when Google and Facebook have so much power, what can we actually do to move the needle?
Well, I think I don't know what we can do 100% to move the needle on whether or not they're going to listen to us and make different changes based off of what we're doing. But what we can do to move the needle in our own world is reevaluate our programs and come up with some new strategies and tactics that are less reliant on what Google and Facebook are telling us and are more about what we are trying to achieve. So, you know, when Facebook removed the in-app, when you could opt out of having your app tracking, your like advertisements tracking, everyone saw their like CPAs increase, and there was this, you know, panic. I had a lot of people calling me saying, "I need to get out of Facebook. It's too expensive, yada yada yada." That just means we have to look at something differently. So instead of focusing so much on the conversion value, what is the value of my ad? Are my click-through rates still high? Are people engaging with me? So for some of it, we have to change how we are measuring our ROI and looking at things, because we're not always going to have exactly what we've used to having.
We also believe that the other power on the nonprofit side is that Facebook group, right? It's essentially your own little giving circle or community or fraternal group of individuals that you get to curate, and many of us, the nonprofit, are using a volunteer to moderate those groups and to engage them, and that becomes real engagement, real one-to-one.
Okay. The next question is for you, Deborah. Big Brothers Big Sister has an interesting structure. How do you honor high-touch volunteer efforts and pursue them as donors as well?
I love that question. We do. So many of us are federated. I'm sure many others are. And I have been in both federated and unified models. What we do nationally is work to empower our local agencies with all the tools, resources, support. So at the national level, I create the donor journeys. They implement them locally within the CRM. That way, they own their humans. They're their volunteers. They're their donors, but they're empowered with all the strategy in the back end at the national level. They don't have to go create it 230 times. We can optimize that. The other thing we do is we do think about our moments, our assets as a national organization as donor moments, donor opportunities, whether it's our conference, our national CEO, live media moments, et cetera. And we're building an integrated donor society model where if I'm a donor in Poughkeepsie and I give $1 million, I feel like I earned the right to talk to the CEO of the national organization. So there needs to be a society that graduates me to that level. Corporations feel the same way. And so we do this through a collaborative funding model that ensures local agency owns local constituent, but we get to steward and engage them across the board.
Great answer. Next question. All of these tactics sound good and well, but when it comes to actually deploying these, I'm hesitant to be one of the first nonprofits to go out on a limb and actually try it. What would you recommend as the first baby step towards centering privacy?
I would first think about what your goal is. You know, what are you trying to achieve, or where's your pain point that you're seeing? As things have changed, like we're all the first because we're all doing this together. So you're in a group of people all doing things at the first time. So you're not alone in stepping out on that limb. But I think it really comes down to what do you need for your own individual program? Are you seeing that your prospecting pool has gotten really small, so you need to now develop new ways to go and reach prospects? Or are you seeing that, you know what, I need to really focus on the renewal program? We talk a ton about acquisition, but what about all of those people that come to us? Maybe that's my area of focus. So I think if you step back and just see where your pain points are or where your growth opportunities are, that will help dictate your roadmap on where to start. And in the lunchtime session, Richard had slides on crawl, walk, run. That's where we all are. So we have to first crawl, and we're getting there. And the good news is that some of this stuff we've been doing for a while, it just hasn't been labeled under data privacy. So you're not always going to be feeling like, oh, I'm stepping out of a limb and doing something that's scary.
And lead with mission. Your mission should dictate what your first step is. So my first step is about youth safety and protection. When you are in a HIPAA organization, it's different safety and protection, right? So what's your mission tell you is your first step?
Yes, is the answer to 2. You do have to think about it now.
Yeah.
Because Rome, be loose cliches all day long. Rome wasn't built in a day. This is going to be an iterative learning process. So you have to start somewhere. So start now so that in a year from now, you're not feeling the pain. If you wait and you're just like, I'm going to continue living in my happy-go-lucky life and not making any changes, you're going to hit that pain point, and we don't want to see anybody do that. So it's also a really big topic to start to tackle. So if you can do it in chunks and lay out what your goals are, you're going to be resilient to what the tech companies decide our future is going to be.
Deborah, you have anything you want to add to that?
It almost blends this and the next question, which is, what do I do first, right? So do I have to start now, and what do I do first? And sometimes it means you take a back seat. So for us, I don't start with the first call to action when I want you to come into our organization is a gift. I want you to become a big. You always land there. We always start with the mission first and the other secondary, but there's good theory behind it. It is the #1 reason that we exist. We exist to drive that participation, but the second is it's where we first party data collect. Immediately you're coming in and we're getting you engaged. Then we can go to step 2 and 3. Right? So we have actually converted to sometimes I'm not first in line on this side, and that's okay because the actual end result is stronger.
And your first party data is always going to be the best thing. So the more first party data you can collect, the greater opportunity you have to use that data to go and work with other partners who can provide you with third party data now that some of our targeting options are being removed. So shoring up this and really thinking about how I can engage with my file, with my supporters, is just, that's key. That's what we all want to be doing. Asking great questions that can then lead to greater experiences for our donors.
I think we covered the next question, but any final thought that you want to share?
But there was one that went away, and the one I just keep reminding folks, it's not like you have to start with the moon and the stars and the sun. I had 7,000 donors I started with last year. That's not very many donors. If you're a small organization, you probably have that many donors. You might have 700, but start with that number and engage in that ecosystem because they then lead to the next one and the next one, and you do learn from those pools. You do see results pretty quickly. It's wonderful to have a smaller pool. You can evolve faster. So that's like the way I like to see glass half full as we are trying to grow ourselves. So don't feel like you can't start somewhere.
Well, thank you, Amy and Deborah, for a great session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay.